The impossible species. Dr. Varnox adjusted his sensory tendrils, their bioluminescent tips pulsing faintly as he stared out over the sprawling skyline of New Centaur, the most advanced medical research hub in the galaxy. The binary stars above bathed the city in a shimmering gold and blue light, illuminating the towering structures of the Galactic Medical Institute, where the best scientists from across the universe gathered to push the boundaries of xenobiology. Varnox was among them. A renowned xenobiologist, a researcher who had spent decades dissecting, analyzing, and classifying the biological intricacies of every major species in the known universe. His people, the Korlax, were masters of genetic sciences, having long perfected the understanding of evolutionary superiority. And yet, despite his towering intellect, despite his countless breakthroughs, despite his 7 prestigious Xenoscience Awards, he now found himself staring at a data screen in complete disbelief. It made no sense. The species profile floating before him was riddled with biological contradictions, flaws, weaknesses, design failures so extreme that by all logic, this creature should have been wiped out long before achieving any form of sentience, let alone space travel. Varnox narrowed his eyes, his tendrils curling in agitation as he read the name of this impossible species. Humans. A low chime echoed through his chamber as his assistant, Driln, shuffled in. The small, multi-limbed assistant carried a glowing data tablet under one of his arms, his antennae twitching with what Varnox immediately recognized as nervous excitement. Dr. Varnox, the Council has confirmed the request. The first human specimen is en route. Varnox exhaled through his respiratory vents, trying to suppress his growing irritation. Driln, he said slowly, ***, you mean to tell me that the Council, ***, the most esteemed governing body of scientific progress, has seriously approved an extended research project on this. He gestured toward the floating human anatomical display, highlighting what could only be described as evolutionary incompetence, water-based biology, a fragile, calcium-supported internal skeleton, no redundant organs, 1 heart, 2 eyes, a centralized nervous system in one of the most exposed locations possible. A bictal species with no natural armor, no toxin defense, no biological weapons beyond keratin protrusions they called teeth. Varnox scoffed. This has to be some kind of joke. Driln hesitated. Sir, the Council insists. Humans are proving highly anomalous. Varnox turned, his elongated pupils narrowing. Anomalous how? Driln hesitated again, antennae twitching. Sir, the reports suggest that humans are incredibly durable. Their biology is absurdly inefficient, yet somehow they consistently outperform other species in physical endurance, metabolic recovery, and adaptability. Varnox let out a derisive laugh. *** endurance. You mean to tell me that these creatures, these creatures with their soft, breakable flesh, are somehow outperforming species with exoskeletal reinforcement, with superior cellular regeneration, with... Driln cut in. Sir, the latest reports indicate that a human holds the intergalactic record for continuous running. Varnox frowned. For how long? Driln took a deep breath. Over 2 planetary cycles. Silence. Varnox's entire body froze. His secondary heart stuttered. 2 planetary cycles. That was over 48 standard hours. Varnox blinked rapidly, trying to process the information. You mean to tell me that these creatures can move continuously for 2 full rotations without rest? Driln nodded, his antennae now practically vibrating with anxiety. Yes, sir. And that's not all. He hesitated. Varnox's tendrils curled. Spit it out, Driln. Driln tapped a few commands on his tablet. The anatomical display of the human shifted, revealing an overlay of neurological activity during extreme exertion. Varnox scanned the data, then stiffened. That can't be right. The display showed human neural function during stress, injury, and exhaustion. Instead of shutting down like every other known species, human cognitive function remained fully operational. Even as their muscles deteriorated, their bodies overheated, and their bones fractured, they kept moving. Varnox's voice was quiet. They override their own pain responses. Drilln swallowed. Yes, sir. Their bodies release a chemical called adrenaline that boosts performance beyond safe biological limits. They'd literally force themselves past the point of collapse. Varnox's exoskeleton rippled with unease. And they survive this. Drilln nodded. Not only do they survive, but some do it for entertainment. Varnox's respiratory vents hissed violently. No, that's impossible. No species willingly subjects itself to physical deterioration for entertainment. Drilln hesitated, then brought up a new data entry. A video. Varnox narrowed his eyes and activated the file. The holo screen lit up, displaying footage from a human event labeled Ultra Marathon. What he saw next shattered his understanding of biological logic. The madness of human endurance. The footage showed a vast desert landscape where thousands of humans were running. Not hunting, not fleeing, not chasing prey. Just running. Some were sweating profusely. Others had visible injuries, yet they did not stop. Varnox's fingers twitched involuntarily. What am I watching? Drilln whispered. Sir, they call it a race. Varnox leaned forward, his pupils dilated with confusion and horror. A timer appeared in the corner of the footage. It read, 36 hours elapsed. The humans were still running. One of them, his legs visibly shaking, his face contorted with pain, collapsed for a moment. Varnox exhaled in relief. Finally, one of them had succumbed to their inevitable biological limits. But then, the human stood back up and kept running. Varnox felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. We need to study them. Varnox turned slowly to Drilln, his voice unnervingly quiet. Tell me, Drilln, has anyone ever conducted a full medical analysis on one of these creatures? Drilln straightened. Not yet, sir, but our first specimen arrives in one planetary rotation. Varnox stared back at the holoscreen, watching a human push through exhaustion, pain, and logic itself. A species that ignored biological constraints. A species that overrode its own survival instincts. A species that ran until its body broke, and then ran some more. Varnox exhaled sharply. Prepare the lab. Because whatever these humans were, they weren't normal. They were something else, and he needed to know what. The dissection of logic. The sterile white lights of the Galactic Medical Institute's research wing flickered faintly as Dr. Varnox strode down the hallway, his mind racing. The incoming human specimen was scheduled to arrive within the next planetary cycle, and he needed to be prepared. He had examined thousands of species, dissected their genetic flaws, and cataloged their evolutionary advantages. Some had regenerative capabilities beyond reason. Others possessed multi-layered nervous systems that prevented pain, and a few even had redundant organs to ensure survival in extreme conditions. Humans had none of these. Yet they thrived. A species that burned their own bodies as fuel. A species that ran for days without stopping. A species that continued to function despite injury, exhaustion, and pain. Nothing about them made sense, and Varnox hated things that didn't make sense. As he approached his research laboratory, his assistant, Drilln, hurried alongside him, the small, multi-limbed alien clutching a datapad like his life depended on it. Sir, Drilln panted, I have compiled more reports on human physiology. The more I read, the more. He hesitated, his antennae twitching. Varnox shot him an impatient glance. More what? Drilln gulped. The more disturbing it becomes. Varnox stepped into the lab, the automatic doors hissing shut behind him. The room was filled with advanced medical scanners. floating diagnostic displays, and containment chambers lined with bioluminescent stasis gel. Everything was ready for the human's arrival. He turned to Drilln and extended a clawed hand. "Show me." Drilln hesitated for a fraction of a second before tapping the holotable in the center of the room. A floating projection of a human anatomical scan materialized before them. Varnox's eyes narrowed as he scanned the data. It was worse than he had thought. The horrors of human biology. Varnox twitched involuntarily as he read the first report. Water-based biology. Extreme fragility. Prone to injury. He shook his head. How do they even function? Drilln tapped a control panel. "You haven't seen the worst part yet, sir." A new section of the report flashed on the screen, showing a biochemical breakdown of human stress responses. Varnox's eyes widened. This is not normal." Drilln nodded solemnly. "They have a system called adrenaline that overrides their pain receptors, allowing them to push beyond physical limits." Varnox recoiled as if the very concept was offensive. "You mean to tell me these creatures willingly inflict pain upon themselves to achieve greater efficiency?" Drilln gulped. "Yes, sir. And not only that, look at their healing capabilities." Another projection appeared. It showed human bone fractures, and something deeply unsettling. Varnox's exoskeleton stiffened. That's impossible." Drilln tapped the display. "Humans don't just heal. They overcompensate. When their bones break, they grow back stronger." Varnox felt his secondary heart skip a beat. "That defies all logic." Drilln's voice trembled. "And yet, sir, it is true." Varnox turned away from the display, his mind reeling. A species that thrived on injury, a species that evolved to break, so it could come back stronger. It was madness. And worst of all, it worked. The experiment begins. Before Varnox could process this horrifying revelation, a sharp chime echoed through the lab. Drilln's antennae twitched. "Sir, the human specimen has arrived." Varnox took a slow, steady breath, then straightened his posture. "Bring it in." The doors hissed open. A pair of heavily armored security personnel stepped inside, flanking a single figure. Varnox's pupils contracted. The human was smiling. She strode into the lab with an easy confidence, her movements casual, almost relaxed. She wore a fitted jumpsuit, a translation device embedded in her ear, and a badge labeled Amanda Blackwood, Human Representative. Varnox was stunned into silence. The human did not appear fragile. She did not appear weak. She walked with the posture of someone who had never once doubted their ability to survive. Amanda grinned as she looked around the lab, hands on her hips. "Nice place you got here, Doc." Varnox stared at her, utterly baffled. You do realize this is a medical examination." Amanda shrugged. "Yeah, thought I'd volunteer since you guys seem to be losing your minds over human biology." Varnox's mandibles twitched. "Losing our minds? Hardly. We are merely fascinated." Amanda smirked. "Fascinated, huh? That what you call it when your assistant looks like he's about to have a nervous breakdown?" Drilln let out a strangled noise. Varnox ignored him. "If you are prepared, we will begin the examination." Amanda sat on the examination platform, stretching her arms. "Go for it." Varnox activated the first scanner, watching as holographic data flooded the displays. He scrutinized her vitals, already searching for evidence of the madness that made humans so resilient. And then the scanner began beeping rapidly. Varnox's secondary hearts stuttered. What is happening?" Drilln's eyes were wide with panic. "Sir, her metabolic rate is fluctuating." Varnox turned to Amanda. "Explain." Amanda just laughed. "Oh, that's probably the caffeine." Varnox's respiratory vents hissed violently. "Caffeine?" Amanda nodded. "Yeah, had a couple cups of coffee before coming in. Speeds up our reaction time. Keeps us sharp." Varnox felt genuine horror creeping into his mind. You willingly consume a substance that alters your biological functions. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Yeah, doesn't everyone? Varnox took an unsteady step backward. A species that ran itself to death for entertainment. A species that overrode pain through chemical bursts. A species that altered its own biological state just to function faster. Varnox stared at Amanda, realization dawning. Humans weren't just survivors. They were biological anomalies. And worse, they did it on purpose. The madness of human adaptation. Varnox stared at the human specimen, Amanda Blackwood, his pupils dilated in disbelief. The data scrolling across his screens was a contradiction, a biological impossibility. The human's metabolic rate was accelerating and decelerating unnaturally, yet she displayed no distress. Her muscle fibers showed micro-tears that should have required extensive repair, yet she appeared completely comfortable. Her heart rate spiked, then stabilized as if nothing had happened. And the cause? Caffeine. A stimulant that humans willingly ingested to override their own biological limits. Varnox exhaled sharply. "Drill," he said, voice tight. "Verify the data again." Drill, still twitching from anxiety, ran the diagnostic scans twice before shaking his head. "Confirmed, sir. The human system is self-adjusting. It appears that even their baseline state is in a constant state of physiological manipulation." Amanda smirked from her seat on the examination platform. "You guys really weren't ready for us, huh?" Varnox snapped his gaze to her. "Do you understand how absurd this is? No species, none, actively consumes mind-altering substances to function." Amanda shrugged. "Guess we're just built different." Varnox ran both sets of hands down his face, a very unscientific sigh escaping his respiratory vents. "We haven't even begun the endurance tests, and already you are defying medical logic." Amanda grinned. "Oh, Doc, you're in for a ride. The unthinkable resilience of human flesh." Varnox inhaled deeply and composed himself. "Fine. We continue." He activated the next phase of the diagnostic scan, a musculoskeletal durability test. If the reports were true, human bones regenerated stronger after fractures. Varnox wanted proof. The holographic display shifted, showing a full density and structural integrity scan of Amanda's bones. Varnox skimmed the results, then froze. His two hearts skipped a beat. Drone let out a choked noise, his antennae stiffening with shock. Varnox snapped toward Amanda. "What is this?" Amanda leaned forward, curious. "What's what?" Varnox gestured wildly at the display. "Your skeletal structure. The density. The reinforcement. The signs of past fractures. Your bones should be brittle with this much damage history. Yet they're there." Drone whispered. "Stronger." Varnox turned sharply to his assistant. "Stronger?" Drone swallowed hard. "Sir, the data confirms it. Her skeletal system has gone through multiple cycles of fracture and repair. And every time, the density of her bones increased." Varnox's mind reeled. Every other species he had ever studied, when faced with bone fractures, required external medical intervention to heal properly. Even the most advanced regenerating species only restored their bones to baseline condition. Humans, they broke, then came back stronger. Amanda flexed her fingers. "Oh, that. Yeah, I broke my arm once as a kid. Hurt like hell, but I got a cool cast, and now my arm's tougher than before. I think it's a human thing." Varnox's mandibles twitched violently. "A human thing." Amanda nodded casually. "Yeah, kinda common. Some athletes even micro-fracture their bones on purpose to get stronger." Varnox nearly collapsed. Drone let out a horrified squeak. Did you just say, on purpose?" Amanda grinned. "Yep. Strength training, bone conditioning, weight-bearing exercises. You push your body past its limits, it builds back tougher. Basic human physiology." "Basic? Varnox's respiratory system malfunctioned for a full 10 seconds, a species that intentionally damaged itself to become stronger. What kind of monstrosity was this species? Pain as a tool, not a limitation. Varnox needed to understand the full scope of this madness. "Fine," he muttered. "Let's test something else." He activated a sensory mapping scan, analyzing pain receptors and nerve sensitivity. Every species in the galaxy had an internal failsafe, a system that forced the body into shutdown when pain levels became too great. It was a biological necessity. Varnox expected to see similar limits in the human. He was wrong. The readings appeared, then glitched. Varnox frowned. "Drilln, recalibrate the scanners. This data is incomplete." Drilln frantically checked the systems. "Sir, the scanners are working. This is real." Varnox stared at the numbers. Human pain receptors activated, but instead of shutting down function, human neural activity increased. Amanda stretched her arms. "Something wrong." Varnox was shaking. "You process pain differently." Amanda smirked. "That a fancy way of saying we push through it?" Varnox's brain short-circuited. "Push through it? You're saying you experience pain and you keep moving." Amanda nodded. "Yeah, that's kinda how we work." Varnox turned to Drilln, who looked pale. "This is not possible." Amanda leaned forward. "Pain is just information, Doc. It tells us something's wrong, but that doesn't mean we stop. Soldiers push through bullet wounds. Marathon runners keep going with torn muscles. Hell, some humans walk on broken legs if they have to." Drilln looked physically ill. "You walking on broken limbs?" Amanda grinned. "Ever heard of adrenaline?" Drilln fainted. Varnox did not blame him. The terrifying truth. Varnox stood in stunned silence, staring at the human before him. This species, this ridiculous, impossible species, they didn't just survive pain. They didn't just tolerate injury. They weaponized it. They overrode their own biology to continue functioning beyond logical limits. Varnox had spent his entire career studying biological efficiency, the balance between strength and sustainability. Humans ignored this entirely. They broke themselves down to become stronger. They overwhelmed their pain receptors to keep moving. They intentionally stressed their bodies to improve. They were not a species of endurance. They were a species of defiance. Varnox exhaled sharply, his entire world tilted off its axis. Humans weren't just survivors. They were unbreakable. Amanda stretched. "So, Doc, what's next?" Varnox's claws curled involuntarily. "Next, we test endurance. And if these reports are correct," he swallowed hard, "I may not survive watching you do it."